I want you to talk about two moments in your life in which you have seen God's favor, you know, before you would, I would say, be successful, and then kind of after. Because I think a lot of times people don't value, they're in the valley and still understand that God still has favor. And then they think that when you get to this pinnacle called success, that you don't really need it no more, like you have arrived. And can you talk about those two moments for a second?
Early on, I didn't even recognize who I was as an artist, as a songwriter. Other people saw it, and I just didn't get it. Growing up, a lot of self-esteem issues, things like that. Playing bass with my brother Jonathan, we were backing up Donald Lawrence. After we got finished eating, you know, Jonathan was talking to Donald, and he said, "You got to hear my brother sing," you know, so he gave everything you are. I was like, man, I'm going to use you for some stuff, and I'm thinking it's kind of like, you know, what we call convention talk, you know, gassing you up or whatever. So I'm like, okay, he's going to call me, sure. About 2 months later, he actually called me. And said, how quickly can you make it to the airport? 2 hours later, I was at the airport flying to Chicago. But I went out and sang those songs. He was very pleased, impressed even. And I was still kind of like, I don't get it, you know, sort of. And not long after that, he called me and we did a recording for Gospel Heritage. And I sang a song called Lord, I Kiss Your Presence. And that was one of the first things that really started to transform who I was. And at this point, I'm a nobody. When I got finished singing, I sat down. Everybody was like, who is this guy? Not long after that, God called me to record I Shall Live. When I did that recording, there was a song called Thirsty on the record. And you alluded to that earlier on. Here I am, I'm doing my little independent thing. I'm working, and here's the favor. I was singing at a service where Marvin Sapp was preaching. When he heard the song, he came to me afterwards, and we were friends. He said, I need to record that song. I said, man, go ahead, cool. I didn't even understand. I didn't understand what God had planned for him. And subsequently, he recorded that song and Place of Worship. And nobody knew, that this song never would have made it, would blow up, and the record would go platinum. And that moment from Donald introducing me made people aware in a way that I had no idea of. And years later, people are still talking about this recording. That moment became the impetus to everything else that happened. Fast forward, and now here I am, 15 years working in the industry. Came out really, really slow getting started. I'm like, oh, maybe we made a mistake, you know, you know, that whole thing. And the next thing you know, it was like the song just started shooting up the charts, and I'm like, oh, maybe this is God's hand. I knew that it wasn't just because I was singing it. I recognized that it was a moment that God's hand was on. The no from the label was favor from God, because if the record had released when I wanted it to release, it would have been smothered by a whole bunch of other major projects that were out. The record ended up being #1 not 1 week, but 2 weeks, stayed in the top 10 for 2 months. And my gifting alone isn't enough to command the success, because I know a whole lot of gifted people who have not necessarily achieved the kind of things that I've achieved in my life. Recognize it ain't me. I'm not that nice. You know what I mean? But it is quite literally God's favor on my life.
We have some products here. Your CD, I Shall Live, the Place of Worship. And
in
then
between that is
we're missing
Shifting the Atmosphere.
Shifting the Atmosphere. Okay. We're gonna figure that things out here. And then we got Jesus Revealed. Every artist has a point in their career where I guess they have certain energies and certain vibes they put into a CD. So what does each one, I guess, represent to you?
I Shall Live is Jason discovering he's a praise and worship artist. Shifting the Atmosphere is the next level of that artistry and understanding kind of my purpose as it relates to praise and worship. But I think Jesus Revealed really is a kind of encapsulates who the pastor Jason is and how the pastor expresses himself as an artist.
So many people, and I would say especially church people who are Christians and believe in some type of higher power, it really bothers me when I hear people say, you know, I'm just waiting on God, you know, I'm just going to pray about it, and then they don't do anything. And I found that usually God will send us, I guess, an opportunity or a way out, but because it doesn't look glamorous to us, we'll discard. It's like, you know, that's not from God. You know, that can't be from God.
You're preaching. Go ahead.
And, you know, I found out that usually a blessing is disguised as opposition. So how did you, I guess, move past your fear?
Can I get preachy a little bit? Just a teensy bit. You touched on a major point